Oh, yeah. You have something? Oh, no, no, okay, I'm gonna check.
We have it. Let me ask you to get that.
That's a long time.
يا عم تعالى يا عم. تعالى جنبي هنا. انت بقعد هنا ورايا. Yes. No, I don't need to. It's not good for the show.
او في الاخر كده يعني تعالى هنا يعني You didn't even
Yeah, you got running around one plate. I don't know.
Something time.
Let's go. We're going to begin the program in 2 minutes. Everybody, please take your seats. Everyone can move forward, please. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi. Greetings to all our guests. I'd like to welcome everyone to Los Angeles Sheriff's Candidates Forum. I'd like to begin by introducing Brother Gar Yusuf for the citation.
A little bit loud. You can't hear.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. وأوفوا بعهد الله إذا عاهدتم ولا تنقضوا الأيمان بعد توكيدها وقد جعلتم الله عليكم كفيلا. إن الله يعلم ما تفعلون. ولا تكونوا كالتي نقضت غزلها من بعد قوة أنجادا تتخذون أيمانكم دخلا بينكم أن تكون أمة هي أربى من أمة إنما يبلوكم الله به وليبينن لكم يوم القيامة ما كنتم فيه تختلفون ولو شاء الله لجعلكم أمة واحدة ولكن يضل من يشاء ويهدي من يشاء ولتسألن عما كنتم تعملون ولا تتخذوا أيمانكم دخلا بينكم فتزل قدم بعد ثبوتها وتذوقوا السوء بما صددتم عن سبيل الله ولكم عذاب عظيم ولا تشتروا بعهد الله ثمنا قليلا إنما عند الله هو خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون ما عندكم ينفد وما عند الله باق ولنجزين الذين صبروا أجرهم بأحسن ما كانوا يعملون من عمل صالحا من ذكر أو أنثى وهو مؤمن من عمل صالحا من ذكر أو أنثى وهو مؤمن فلنحيينه حياة طيبة ولنجزينهم أجرهم بأحسن ما كانوا يعملون ولنجزينهم أجرهم بأحسن ما كانوا يعملون صدق الله العظيم.
Now I'd like to introduce Brother Basim Awan, senior student of Brother Kari Yusuf, to do the translation of the Quran.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace be unto all of you. Inshallah, today I'm going to do a translation of the mesmerizing recitation by Hadith of Al-Huj. God commands doing justice, doing good to others, and giving to near relatives. And He forbids indecency, wickedness, and rebellion. He admonishes you so that you may take heed. Fulfill the covenant of God when you have pledged to do so, and do not break your oath after you have sworn them. For swearing in His name, you have made God your surety. Surely God has knowledge of all that you do. Do not behave like that woman who had spun her yarn strongly, and then broke it into pieces herself. Nor take your oaths for mutual deceit, so that people may take undue advantage over the other. For God puts you to trial by these oaths, and on the day of resurrection, He He will certainly make clear to you the truth about which you deferred. If God wanted, he could have made you all one nation. But he lets go astray whom he wants and guides whom he pleases. But most certainly, you will be questioned about all your actions. O believers, do not take oaths to deceive each other, lest your foot slip after being firmly fixed upon guidance, and taste the evil consequences for debarring others from the way of God, and incur a mighty punishment. Do not sell the covenant of God for a petty price. Certainly, God's reward is far better than all your gain, if you but knew it. But whatever is with you is transitory, and what is with God is everlasting. We will certainly reward those who are patient according to the noblest of their deeds. Whoever does righteous deeds, whether male or female, provided he is a believer, we shall surely grant him a new life, a life that is good. And we will certainly reward such people according to the noblest of their deeds in the hereafter. Sadaqallah.
Jazakallah khair, Brother Bassem and Brother Yusuf. I'd like to thank everyone here in attendance tonight, especially the candidates who have already shown their determination simply by being here. I'd like to point out and thank specifically some of the members of the audience, our liaison to the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, Michael Dean, former mayor, assistant city council member of the city of Bell, Ali Saleh, Steve Ty from the city of Denver, running for state assembly in 2014, Ms. Jamaica Williams from the U.S. Department of Justice, Ms. Anila Ali, candidate for the California Assembly for District 74. Also, I'd like to thank the Islamic Center of San Gabriel Valley for organizing such an important event. Without their help, none of this would have been possible. And last but not least, I'd like to thank the members of the audience from various government and private organizations who have consistently shown support to the masjid and to the Muslim community as a whole. The LA Sheriff's Department, specifically the Muslim Community Affairs Unit, has been deeply involved in the concerns of the Muslim community, and we appreciate their commitment to our center and the Muslim population as a whole. Today's event will stream live on YouTube for those who are not able to make it today. The link is provided on both the ICSGB website and the ICSGB Facebook page. Any questions may be directly posted onto the YouTube's comment thread, and they will be answered tonight. So. The Islamic Center of San Gabriel Valley is one of the largest Islamic centers in Southern California and is about to write a new history today as we welcome Los Angeles County Sheriff's candidates who will not only meet the Muslim community at the Islamic Center, but also take and answer questions important to the needs of Los Angeles County citizens. Please remember the Islamic Center of San Gabriel Valley, being a religious 501c nonprofit organization, does not support nor endorse any candidates. It's simply providing a forum at a beloved masjid as a public service to the community at large. I'd now like to introduce the president of the Islamic Center, Mr. Afzal Hussain, for a brief welcome address.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم صلاة والسلام سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. I begin in the name of God, the Beneficent and Merciful, and I greet you with the greetings of peace. Assalamu alaikum. Respected candidates for the elect county sheriff, Assistant Sheriff Jim Hellman, Police Chief Jim McDowell, Assistant Sheriff Todd Rogers, and Under Sheriff Paul Tanaka, and each and every one of you here tonight. On behalf of the Board of Directors, the Board of Trustees, and the community of the Islamic Center of San Gabriel Valley, it is a great pleasure and honor I welcome you to the LA County Sheriff Candidate Forum here at the Islamic Center of San Diego Valley, also known as ICSGB. Part of our mission statement is that ICSGB will help the Muslim community become informed and engaged citizens. We achieve this by educating our members and building relationships with interfaith institutions, school districts, civic institutions such as CARE and PAC, and government agencies, including law enforcement, such as the Sheriff Department. Why are we doing all this, you may ask? Ladies and gentlemen, this is in the interest of making our cities, our county, our state, our country, and our whole world a peaceful and better place to live. We all want that, don't we? We have to work together, my friends, in order to achieve this. Inshallah, God willing, we will have a great candidate forum here tonight, and hopefully every one of you will leave here with more information and better understandings of all these fine gentlemen here. All candidates here are well-qualified gentlemen and deserve to be elected as the Sheriff of LA County. The great relationship ICSGB and the Sheriff Department goes a long way. And we hope and expect that whosoever gets elected will build upon that relationship. May God bless us and guide us, and may God bless the United States of America. Assalamu alaikum.
Next up, I will invite Mr. Jonathan Gardner, our Community Outreach Liaison, for a short message. Mr. Gardner.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, and good evening, gentlemen. As I look around and at the stage, and I'm in awe with the collective expertise gathered here today, we are deeply honored to welcome you all on behalf of the Islamic Center, as our president just said. As an outreach liaison, we were informed by our deputies who are, we have a great relationship with law enforcement and with our political leaders. And Mike Abdeen, Deputy Mike Abdeen and Deputy Hassan Atani came up to our chair, who's the outreach chair, Ashraf Idwani, and he talked to us both, being a board member also and a liaison. So we said, yes, of course. We always encourage, and brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, you may have noticed, we always have these forums here. This is not the first time that we are doing that. So I hope and pray that you will. Please understand, questions are there. They will, once we have our moderator come in, he will explain everything to you. So do not shy away. This is the time when you can talk to them one-on-one. This is the time when you can talk openly at what you have on your minds. As a member of the community, of the Muslim community, at times we are a little skeptical, when we see our law enforcement officers coming in. So, but however, times have changed. They come to us with an open hand, with an open heart, and we need to reciprocate. So inshallah, with that said, I will not take a lot of time. I know I am on the clock. And Ali is looking at me very soon, telling me to leave. But I just want to say the outreach has been doing these programs for quite a while. Our board, our ex-president, our current president, they all encourage us. And we are really, really very happy to have you all here. By virtue of doing this, it's not only for us per se, it's for our kids and our grandkids. They are not going anywhere. This is their country, they're a part of the fabric of this country. So we definitely need to encourage them and encourage ourselves. We have a sister here who's running for the assembly, Sister Anila Ali. Great lady, I've met her, I've talked to her, we know her. So that's what it is, this is from the Muslim community. So gentlemen, thank you once again for being here for us. And I would like to thank the community once again. And the management who has come up with this program. Here, my company is right here. Thank you so much, and thank you, Aslatani. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Before I introduce the moderator tonight, I'd like to introduce Mr. Haroon Manjalai, the Public Affairs Coordinator from the Council of American Islamic Relations, and endorser of tonight's event.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. On behalf of the Council on American Islamic Relations, first I want to thank the Islamic Center of St. Gabriel Valley for hosting this forum at your beautiful center. Secondly, I want to thank all the candidates for being here and engaging with our community so that our community can get to know all of you and all of you can get to know our vibrant, diverse, and dynamic community. Engagements like these are a sign of a healthy community. So it gives me a lot of pleasure to see the number of people here and just to know that programs like these are possible and are happening, especially here in St. Gabriel Valley. What I really want to talk about, and I won't take a lot of time, is the legacy of Sherrif Libaka. In the March of 2011, when I was still living in Michigan, I recently moved to California less than a year ago. So March of 2011, I was a law student going to school in Ohio when the Peter King hearings happened, when Peter King held his infamous hearings about the extent of radicalization in the Muslim community, and that whole unfair, the biased hearings that he held and brought in speaker after speaker who were giving misleading facts, baseless facts about our community. And it was during that unjust hearing that Sherrif Libaka showed up to that hearing, and he spoke the truth in face of power. He rejected that hearing. He rejected the things that were said. He spoke highly of the Muslims, of the peaceful Muslims of the Los Angeles County that he worked with, and he stood up for us. And I say us because even though at that time I didn't consider myself a Californian, because that is something that impacted me. Right? The sheriff of this county said something that impacted Muslims all over America. And that is the legacy of Sherrif Libaka, and that is a legacy that we can all live up to, whether we're running to replace him or if you're the people who are going to be voting in the next sheriff. Thank you very much.
Finally, I'd like to introduce the moderator of this evening's event on the forum, Mr. Kamal Khatib. Mr. Kamal earned his bachelor's degree in accounting from Yarmouk University in Jordan in 1993, his master's degree in business administration and international business from the National University in San Diego. He's the founder of many organizations, including the American Islamic Institute, established in 1993, and also organizations such as the acclaimed Guidance Charter School, K through 12. With that, I'd like to introduce Mr. Khatib. I'd like to ask Mr. Khatib to the podium to begin tonight's forum.
Assalamu alaikum, peace be on you all. I want to give a very big round of applause for all these officials, elected officials, and the candidates here. To run for an office, believe me, it takes a very, very big man and a very big heart putting this family. So this will give him a huge big round of applause for all of you. And I want to thank all of the youth and everybody who participated in this event. Didn't happen just vacuum or by accident. It took a lot of effort from the youth, from the masjid, from the center. I want to thank everybody without naming names. And I am going to start the program because we're already running about half an hour late. I want to tell you that all candidates were invited, and 6 candidates confirmed they're going to be here, and 1 candidate declined. And also I want to tell you that the Islamic Center of San Gabriel Valley is a non-profit organization, 501c, does not support or endorse any of the candidates. This event is provided for the service for the community to hear about the issues related to the sheriff position in Los Angeles County. Los Angeles County Sheriff Department is one of the largest county sheriff in the world. It has over 17,000 deputies and employees. It oversees over 19,000 inmates in Los Angeles County. It has contract with 41 cities in Los Angeles County and a budget of $2.8 billion, not million, billion dollars. So we're talking about a very, very important position that we have to, whoever is going to fill that position need to be very careful in how to run it, and it's very important for our community that who's been very close to the Sheriff Department to learn about each candidate, what they stand for. The rules tonight, basically we're going to have the first question with 2 minutes and a closing question with 2 minutes. We're going to start from the right, and then the left, and right, and left. And then also we're going to give a chance to rebuttal. If any of you got attacked by another candidate, I hope this event is going to be very cordial, professional, without any personal attack. Let's focus on the issue. We have timekeepers here. We have Sister Diana and Brother Sulaiman. Please give them a round of applause already in advance. And Brother Ali Jakani also, he's going to be receiving the questions. You can send your questions through the streamline. Also, we're going to be taking questions. I want to ask like 2 or 3 questions from me that I prepared already. Then we're going to take questions from the audience, and we're going to take questions from the people online. I think this is all the clearinghouse items that I have to start. Just for the record, the people that confirmed tonight again, retired Lieutenant Patrick Gomez. He did not show up. Let's give him a round of applause just for being a candidate. Assistant Sheriff Jim Helmo, again. Chief of Long Beach Police Jim McDonald. Retired Commander Bob Olmsted. Assistant Sheriff Todd Rogers. Retired Under Sheriff Paul Tanaka. Are you guys ready? All right. So basically, when I first will start the question, you're going to start. You see the green to start. When you have 15 seconds left, you will see the yellow, and you stop at the red. So we're going to start with Mr. Tanaka. And this question for all the candidates. The first question is, please introduce yourself to the audience and tell us why are you running for Sheriff of Los Angeles County.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone, and thank you very much to the Islamic Center of San Gabriel Valley for hosting this, and to all the members from the community who have taken time out this evening to come out and get informed on this very important race. I was a member of law enforcement for 33 years. I retired last August so that I could run for the position of sheriff. And during the course of my 33 years, I had an opportunity to work at every single rank, from the position of deputy, sergeant, lieutenant, all the way up to number 2 to the undersheriff when I retired. The only person in this race that has either worked in or commanded every single unit in this nearly 18,000 person organization. I am also a certified public accountant by education at Loyola Marymount. I was in public accounting for 20 years, and I also managed the sheriff's budget. It was $1.7 billion when I first started managing it in 2002, and when I retired last year, it was $2.8 billion. I'm in my 10th year as the mayor of the city of Gardena, about 30 miles west of here. It's a city that we have helped guide from near bankruptcy at a $5.5 million debt to a $10 million surplus. I have the operational, the business, and the political experience that is necessary for this most important job. Step right in from day one. It's a job that's far too important and far too big for on-the-job training. I have the ability to step right in. I have the experience and the institutional knowledge of who's doing the job, to be able to step right in from day one, help restore trust and credibility that is so vitally needed between law enforcement and the community, and to get the Sheriff's Department back to what is most important to the community.
15 seconds.
It is to fight crime and to make your community safer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Rogers. Yes. Then we go right back.
Assalamu alaikum, my brothers and sisters. My name is Todd Rogers, and I'm very honored to be with you here this evening at your beautiful mosque. I would like to offer congratulations to all of you on your recent grand opening of the center. I'm very appreciative of the partnership that we've had with you and the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. It is a very close relationship that I certainly intend on enhancing if I'm fortunate enough to be elected Sheriff of Los Angeles County. I grew up in Los Angeles County. I lived in the city of Carson. When I was growing up there, it was considered the most diverse city in the United States of America. I graduated from Carson High by the grace of God financial aid. I was able to go to Cal State University Dominguez Hills, get a bachelor's degree in history, secondary teaching credential in social studies, and a master's degree in sociology. I was elected to Lakewood City Council in 2001. I've been re-elected in 2005, 2009, and 2013. I'm now serving my third one-year term as mayor of the city, and I consider it one of the high honors of my life to be able to do that. I joined the Sheriff's Department 29 years ago. Some of the key assignments that I had was teaching law enforcement agencies throughout California how to do community policing. Community-based policing is something that's very near and dear to me. When I was captain at Carson Station for 6 years, I institutionalized community policing. I made sure that everybody at my station reached out to the community, formed real partnerships, and solved problems that were important to the diverse community that we serve. We're the first sheriff station in the state of California to win the James T. Wilson Award for Excellence in Community Policing. 12 months ago, Sheriff Vaca reached out to me. We were facing lots of scandals. The Sheriff's Department was in lots of trouble, and he asked me if he promoted me to assistant sheriff, if I would help him reform the organization from within. I accepted the challenge. It was my honor to do that. I'm ready for sheriff because I love the LA County Sheriff's Department. I want to restore your trust in the department and the pride that the men and women of the department have within the organization. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for hosting us here today. My name is James Hummel. I'm the Assistant Sheriff of Los Angeles. I currently command all of the patrol and detective operations throughout Los Angeles County. I've been here many times, and I pay great honor to you and all of your families. I grew up right down the street from here, and I know my father, who had passed away, would be just so proud of the fact that this Islamic Center was built here. I know that it took a lot of trials and tribulations in the past. Century or decades ago, it was very difficult to even build an Islamic center such as this. And I'm just so proud from the bottom of my heart that our community has come a long way. And I want to bring those same types of changes to the Sheriff's Department. Many of the people I'm running for sheriff against have been very, very hard on Sheriff Lee Baca, and there was some management issues that we had to fix within the Sheriff's Department. But I'm proud to say that I stand behind all of the inclusiveness he brought into the Sheriff's Department, into the law enforcement community as a whole. And we have much more to do to make these permanent fixtures in law enforcement. If we don't elect the right sheriff, then these are just temporary fixtures in law enforcement. And what I want to do is expand from Los Angeles throughout the entire nation the inclusiveness that the Honorable Sheriff Lee Baca brought to our department. And at the same token, tighten up some of the management and accountability that occurred within our agency. I want to strengthen public safety and rebuild public trust in the Sheriff's Department. I have more than 25 years on this agency, have worked many great areas throughout the department, and feel that I have the experience and the qualifications and the compassion to do that. So I ask for your support and your consideration, and thank you very much for having us here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for having us tonight again in this beautiful center. I got a tour here recently and couldn't have been more impressed with the beautiful work, and a lot of time and energy and certainly hard-earned money went into building this beautiful facility. We've heard a little bit about the relationship the Sheriff's Department has enjoyed, much the same, I believe, as the LAPD and other agencies who've reached out have tried to enjoy as well. We've come a long way in in the last 15 years. We have a long way to go. I look at building on the relationship that we have, building on the foundation that we have, and I think that's very important. Sheriff Baca left a legacy of doing a great job in reaching out to many diverse communities around the county and beyond. And so when you look at that as a takeaway, we have a good foundation. But we had a failure of leadership in the organization. And it's cost this county, in the last 3 years, the estimates I've heard are over $100 million in lawsuits and settlements. And that's money that could be spent a lot better on youth programs, on deputies, on overtime, and on so many other things. What we need is positive leadership to get the LASD back on track. It's a great organization, it's a great asset to the whole region, but it went astray. And it went astray not because of the men and women out there on the street every day, but because of the lack of leadership within the organization that not only allowed, but in some cases encouraged some of the behavior, misconduct, and criminal activity we saw. We had 20 deputies indicted within the last several months. There's speculation that there's more to come. I don't know about that. But when you look at that, these are deputies who came on the job to do a good job, to be good cops. They have families. Those families are now upside down. The lack of leadership, total lack of leadership, now those deputies are facing losing their freedom. Why? Because of the tone that was set from the top. We need to set the proper tone. We need to hold our people accountable. We need to be able to do so in a way where we build on a foundation of respect. Reach out to every community within the county with a hand.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Thank you.
The next series of questions. The next series of questions will be 1 minute, and the final closing question will be 2 minutes. So, and as I told you earlier, if you get attacked indirectly or directly, if your name mentioned in the question, or then I'll give you a chance to rebuttal. I'll give you a 1 minute rebuttal for the same thing that you can answer. And also, I might give a chance to the rest of the candidate if you want to give their input, so it can be fair and balanced with everybody. So the next question: do you plan on continuing the outreach efforts that retired Sherrif Baca initiated with the Muslim community, including the cultural diversity? And the question goes to Mr. Rogers.
Thank you. That was a great legacy to Sheriff Baca left for us. He taught the organization an uncommon level of compassion in law enforcement, something that I support and will continue. I'm an advocate of community-based policing. Not only will I continue the personal outreach efforts to the Muslim community and all the communities of Los Angeles County, that's not enough. We need everybody in the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department to be committed to the same effort. I want my deputies, sergeants, lieutenants, captains, all the way through the chain of command to reach out to the community to see what's important to you, what your needs are, but more importantly, I want to open the doors of the organization even wider for you to come in and help guide me on how I can be the best sheriff I can be for your community and all the diverse communities of Los Angeles County. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hamad?
Undoubtedly, one of the strongest legacies that Mr. Baca left was the openness and inclusiveness to all cultures, and we absolutely need to continue, but I would say even grow on that. I want to be more specific as opposed to say general nice things. I want to be more specific, meaning I want to recruit from the Muslim community. I want the language skills. I want the cultural skills. I want total openness and inclusiveness. So this just, for me, is not just a political speech. This is actual actions to bring this permanent positive change for our community to the Sheriff's Department and spread it out throughout law enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, yes. Absolute commitment to reaching out to the Muslim community as well as other communities throughout the county. You look at the rich diversity we have in this county, that's what makes this place so special. We have people from all over the world. You can celebrate every culture, every language, every religion right here within our borders within the county. And that's the beauty of the area that we enjoy and are privileged to live in. As the Sheriff's Department, as an organization that serves the public, we have an opportunity to be able to bridge that gap that exists up to this point, to be able to reach out, to be able to include everybody in the organization, whether it's advisory groups. Certainly you heard hiring. We need to bring people from every community in the county onto the department. It's critical that we represent and we look like the community that we serve. It's only then that we can truly understand each other, to bridge the gap, and to be able to be one moving forward to make the county an even safer place to live.
Thank you, Mr. Tamata.
Law enforcement must always take a leadership role. in engaging the community and working with all of you to make each and every community safe. 100% trust between the community, the very many cultured communities in Los Angeles County and law enforcement has to be. Trust is essential in order for us to do our job. Law enforcement has to take a very strong role in engaging the various communities because we have to ensure that the hysteria that grabbed this country in the 1940s, where they locked up everybody of Japanese American descent because of their culture, law enforcement has to play a leading role to make sure that never happens again. Sheriff Lee Baca was a great man and a visionary. He gave us Sergeant M. Dean and Mike Itani, Deputy Itani. Okay? And as sheriff, yes, I will certainly continue the outreach to the Muslim community and every diverse community across Los Angeles County. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question I'm going to take from the Executive Director of the Shura Council. Is he on? Okay, he's the Executive Director of the Shura Council, which consists of a group of mosques in Southern California with over like 72 mosques. Is he on the phone?
I'll get it. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to take a question from the audience. I need a microphone, please. Can you pass the microphone? Anybody has a question for? Yes, sir.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome all the candidates.
And we're going to have all the candidates, even if the question is directed toward one candidate, we're going to have all the candidates answer for being fair and balanced.
Hello, all the candidates here. My name is Mubin Bey, and my first question is to Mr. Tanaka. Mr. Tanaka, you have had a wonderful experience as far as finances are concerned. Okay, but I see that there is certain urgency on other part of the law enforcement, such as the sheriff's department. Could you elaborate that what kind of plan you have in mind and you will implement as regard to the outreach, in particular the Muslim society, because as you know, the Muslim communities is the fastest growing community not only in Los Angeles, throughout the country. Okay, now what kind of plan?
One question, right?
Well, the question is what plan you will implement in order to eradicate the hate crime, particularly the attacks at the places of worship, which you have just recently experienced in Kansas and other parts. Do you have a plan and how would you implement?
Okay, thank you. So the question from Mr. Tanaka regarding do you have a specific plan how to protect the place of worship in all of Southern California, including the Los Angeles County? I'm going to start with you and we go this way, and we need everybody to answer the question.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, this is something that Lee Baca started when he was a sheriff. He put together a task force that was directed particularly at the Asian community, because every community experiences their own kinds of problems, their own kinds of crime, and different people experience different types of attacks. Sergeant Abdeen and Deputy Itani are examples of what the Sheriff's Department has done in putting people in place to ensure that everybody from the Muslim community has a voice, so that they're able to keep their ear to the ground as to what kinds of concerns that the community has, whether it's at a mosque or at a center or somewhere in the community. And so the plan is to continue to do that and to build upon that as necessary, but to always make sure that we have a voice from the community on the Sheriff's Department and vice versa.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. And some specific things that I would do is, first of all, not only hire from within our own culture, but also there's a specific reason that you would do that. We would be aware of events that would occur, holidays, family events that you put together, for example, here at the Islamic Center, so that we know exactly what's going on and times that would be of more vulnerability or danger. These are the reasons we want to have the cultural and language skills that are available. So I don't want to give just nice speeches, which are nice, but I want to give specific actionable reasons that will benefit and strengthen your quality of life and safety every single day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's critical that we take any hate incidents, hate crimes very, very seriously, and we do. And I think Southern California law enforcement as a whole has been on the leading edge of that. I chair, for the ADL, I chair a group that we bring together leaders from around Southern California law enforcement quarterly. We meet 4 times a year to discuss those that are involved in our communities in bias, hatred, and bigotry. We share information and we look to be able to drill down to see what the sources of these are. Oftentimes we find skinhead groups, white supremacist groups, and many other groups. So we focus our attention where they need to be focused. We don't tolerate it. If we have a mosque, a temple, or any other religious facility that is vandalized, we take it very seriously. We get out, we investigate, we report back on it, and the message is very clear that we don't tolerate activities of that nature of any sort.
Thank you.
Mike and Hassan have their fingers on the pulse of the community, but that's not enough. They do a great job, but I need to be involved in the community. I want to hear directly from you all what the concerns are, the things that arise in the community. I want to have advisory council advising me on a regular basis in terms of what we're hearing and what our concerns are. But most importantly, I want to be an advocate. I want to be an advocate for Muslims everywhere that's a peace-loving religion, a peace-loving people. And hatred will not be tolerated in Los Angeles County. And anybody who steps over the line and engages in hateful activities will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. And I will provide leadership on that issue to the law enforcement community in Los Angeles County, the state of California, and the United States of America. Thank you.
The next question, we're going to take it online from Brother Shakil Sayyid. He is, as I said, he's an executive director from the Shura Council. Brother Shakil, you are on the line. What's your question? Can we get one question at a time? Because I want him to answer one question at a time, because it's very hard to answer the 3 questions at the same time.
Yeah, no, I'm asking one question to each one of them, basically. So the first question is to Mr. Jerry Rogers and one more. That you folks have been on the system all along. Why should we believe that you will bring about a certain immediate change in the system? And my second question is to Commander Barfour, that you certainly have.
He is not here. Commander Barfour is not there. We have Todd Rogers, McDonald, Helmut, and Tanaka.
Okay, so my question is remains the same. Mr. Tanaka, Rogers, and Barfour, then why should we believe that you will bring about a change that you are considered part of that system and about that system?
And also, I'm going to yield that question also to Mr. McDonald to basically answer it in your own way. Thank you very much. Okay, well, let me write it down because I was going to forget. What's the question? Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, so my first question is to the big panelist, Mr. Rogers, and why should we believe that you will bring about change in offensive establishment requirements that you were yourself an integral part of? My other question to now that you have gone to the Blue Commission and have found out some serious discrepancies in the system.
I can't understand the line is cutting off and I can't understand the question, brother. How about if we just have him answer the question and then we can take the other question? I want to try to answer the question. We'll start with Mr. Rogers.
Thank you very much. There's not a law enforcement agency out there that doesn't have some allegations of misconduct. The other county sheriff's department's the same. We're having a tough time, no doubt about it. But I will say that 95% of the members of Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department are doing a great job, doing the right things for the right reasons every single day. I've resisted corruption throughout my career. I was pressured to give, for example, an exclusive tow contract to a company from a corrupt leader in the organization. I refused to do that. I have several examples of how I've resisted corruption throughout my career. And I was brought in 12 months ago by Sheriff Lee Baca himself to overcome the catastrophic failures of leadership that we had from others, to start fixing the organization from within. I've taken favoritism out of the promotional processes. I've taken favoritism and cronyism out of the hiring processes. I'm fixing the mess that was the budget that I inherited when I took over the job. And we even created a website for employees to report misconduct internally anonymously. Thank you.
Thank you. Time is up. Okay, Mr. Hamal, thank you.
The debate, we've been to many debates together, and one of the opponents says, hey, I'm an outsider versus an insider. And then based on the responses of other people, it would say, hey, everyone's trying to claim to be an outsider. Not me. I'm not claiming to be an outsider. I'm committed to the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department and all the men and women who work for this agency and the communities we serve. I am not ashamed of the Sheriff's Department. I won't put it aside because we've gone through tough times. I will build on what was done correctly by Mr. Baca, and I will root out what was wrong. And that's a lack of accountability. We needed to hold people accountable. We needed to ensure that there were systems in place to ensure that if there was misconduct and corruption, that it was dealt and addressed with. But these types of questions, I'm the only candidate saying I'm a proud member of the Sheriff's Department. I'm proud to serve you, and I'm proud of everything that Sheriff Lee Baca stood for that was right, and I will continue to build that up.
Thank you. Mr. Tanaka.
Okay, I will say in fairness to these other two that were asked this question, you can't really hold them responsible for being part of the system because they were only recently elevated to the position of assistant sheriff. Okay, so they didn't really have that much sway. I, on the other hand, worked very closely with the sheriff for a number of years. And I will say that, yes, some people think I'm part of the system. Two people couldn't be more different. Okay, he and I disagreed quite often on many things. There was nothing criminal that he was doing. It was philosophical in nature in his leadership and management style. He did not like to hold the executives accountable. If you have a company and the people that work for you who are bosses don't hold their people accountable, your company is going to fail. So you have to, when you're the boss, you have to hold those who are in position accountable. And that was the biggest difference. I would say that the bottom line is all of you have a boss. If you don't do what your boss says all the time, you'll be unemployed.
Thank you. Mr. Miguel, I know it's not part of the question, but I want you to elaborate whatever you want to say on this.
Sure. I am an outsider, although I've grown up alongside the Sheriff's Department for the last 33 years, worked in the LAPD for 29, and then in Long Beach PD for 4. And during that time, I've watched the organization go through some very tough times. It is a great organization that, due to a lack of leadership or a failure of leadership, it has fallen on tough times, and we're all paying for that. Nobody pays more than the deputies inside the organization and what they deal with every day. But ultimately, the people in the community are the ones that suffer the most. It needs a fresh perspective, an outside set of eyes to be able to come in and see things that insiders don't. When you walk through a room and you see a painting, if you work in that room, it's a beautiful painting. You don't see it after you work there for a month. Somebody else comes in new, they see the painting, they admire it, and it's something that strikes you. All of us are subject to that, and through no fault of their own here, the members of the panel here are part of that. They don't see what they could see. They don't see opportunities they might otherwise see because they've been in the organization and too close to the picture for too long.
Thank you. So the next question is going to start with Mr. Mandano. And the question is, we heard about the jail system problems. We heard investigation by the Department of Justice. We heard the reports, ACLU, all the problems. I want to see, what's your plan that ensure that this never happen again? Are you having any plan to have a commission to oversee this? Or what is your specific plan? I don't want a general plan, I want a specific plan.
Thank you very much. I had the opportunity to sit on the Citizens Commission on Jail Violence for a year. We dug into the jails, we did an investigation, and we saw the LASD during its darkest days. From that, we issued a report with 63 recommendations for substantial change within the jail and within the organization, very detailed. I would also go into the organization using that as a baseline, not as a goal. I would put in place collaborative goals where we work toward those, we set milestones, and we set command accountability system in place to hold people accountable for meeting those milestones and ultimately working toward the goals. I'd have an inspectional services division that would go out and be my eyes and ears to find problems so we can fix them ourselves before they become major problems. And then I would recommend civilian oversight, that we embrace that. I dealt with it at the LAPD for 29 years. We had a police commission, we had an inspector general. You have outside eyes looking at what you're doing, that's good for everybody.
Thank you. I just want to clarify for the record, the oversight you're recommending is a commission or just a committee?
No, yet to be determined. It'll have to be worked out with the Board of Supervisors and then all the stakeholders within the county to get the buy-off. We currently have an inspector general recently put into place. We would be building on that with whatever the board buys off on as far as structure, yet to be determined.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rogers, and I'll give you another 5 seconds for what he did. So, 1 of 5.
Number one, I'm going to send the right message from the top that force is used only as a last resort. It's something that we want to avoid at all costs. We're going to have strict accountability for deputies to step over the line and use excessive or unreasonable force. People who engage in that have lost their privilege to be members of the organization will be fired. There will be accountability for supervisors who fail to proactively supervise and make sure that excessive force doesn't occur. Usually when a deputy gets in trouble, there's a supervisor who didn't do his or her job. We're going to professionalize the jail operation. We're going to have folks who want to work in the jails, who can spend their careers in the jails, who have their calling to work in a custodial facility, so we don't have a bunch of people working there who just can't wait to get out to go to a patrol station. And then we're going to deal with the mental health crisis in our jails. I want to have mental health response teams available 24/7 to respond to mental health crises so we can diffuse the situations instead of treating them as tactical situations and resorting to a use of force. I think that will go a long way to starting to deal with the issues in the jails. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tanaka?
First order of business in restoring order anywhere, especially in our jails, is you have to begin with who you hire. We can only afford to hire the very best of what society has to offer, of the highest in character and conduct. Second, we have to provide them with continuous training to ensure that what they do and how they do it is consistent with the best practices of running a jail. And finally, it goes back to leadership again, just like in all your companies. You have to put in place people who are experienced, who are knowledgeable, and who have the courage to hold people accountable to do the job they need to do. And finally, we have to work closely with the independent overseer. In this case, it's the Inspector General, and I support that. The board recently appointed an Inspector General with a staff. We have to work closely with that individual to make sure that we are doing things well, that we're doing things in the right way, and that we are doing things in a manner that the public trusts us 100%. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I have a very specific plan for oversight. I want it to be meaningful and have an actual impact on our conduct and our professionalism. What I mean by that is, we have a candidate that's running that was from LAPD, and there was a police commission that was there, and yet Rampart scandal happened, which was a very major scandal. So the point is not to blame anybody. My point is to say we need real oversight. And I have a two-pronged approach. First of all, the Office of Inspector General, which would have attorney-client privileges so that you can significantly impact the quality of the cases as they're there. And then part two, that would be a community crisis accountability commission, which would take place in each of the 42 contract cities, so it's local specific. It would be leaders from the community that are appointed by the elected officials, which would be the Board of Supervisors or local city councils. So when a crisis occurs, we have public forums, and they would be required to report back with real information about the cases, so we have real reform and we have real answers for our community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. The next question I'm going to take from the audience. Yes. Brother, yes. Yeah, let's make the question brief and concise so we know exactly.
This question is for Chief McDonald. You stated earlier that you are involved with the Anti-Defamation League. The ADL is a pro-Israeli organization that spoke strongly against the right of 11 college students to speak out against Israeli Ambassador Michael Horn during the infamous Irvine 11 case. As a result, these students now have a misdemeanor charge on their record. My question is, how can you ensure that you will speak up for minority rights, particularly Muslim rights, when you are involved with organizations such as the ADL that clearly work to suppress our rights?
Thank you. Good question. The aspect of the ADL that we work with is all law enforcement officers who come together from Southern California and focus on hate crimes, bias, bigotry, and hatred. We look at graffiti, we look at patterns, we look at different things we see to be able to try and root out hate crime. As far as the politics of it, we don't get involved in that. Our role is strictly investigative, collaborative, and trying to bridge a gap between what's going on out there, particularly with white supremacists and others who are spewing hatred, and to be able to take them in custody where appropriate. So thank you for the question. I can't really answer the politics of that because I'm not involved with that aspect, only the law enforcement aspect. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody want to elaborate on that, or should we take another question? Okay, we'll take another question from the audience. Sister, can you give her the microphone, please?
Assalamu alaikum and good evening. So everybody, especially four of you, are sitting very upright. So my question is, have you ever visited a Muslim country, and what is your general impression of Muslims?
Okay, so the question, have you ever visited any Muslim country? What's your general impression of Muslims in general? Okay, and we start with Mr. Tanaka.
Ma'am, I have not had the opportunity to visit a Muslim country today. I haven't had an opportunity to visit very many countries outside of my own during my lifetime. But my viewpoint on Muslims, much like with any other community, is from a law enforcement perspective. We look at every community as being a part of this country, and people who are like any other people. All they want to do here in America is have a good place to live, a good place to work, and a good place to raise their family. And it's our job to ensure that you have the proper environment to do it in. And that's my perspective on your community and every other community here in this country.
Thank you. Mr. Rogers.
I have not had the opportunity to travel outside the country or outside the United States to a Muslim country, although I really would relish the opportunity to do so. My experience with the Muslim community has been very positive. Islam is a peace-loving religion, and it's essential to the fabric of Los Angeles County and to the United States of America. I also think it's a misunderstood religion. We have a lot of hatred out there. The question earlier was about hatred. Hate in any form is wrong, intolerable, and it's something that I need to be a champion against. I do think there's a lot of misunderstanding, and it will certainly be my privilege to work with all of you to make sure that those misunderstandings are cleared up.
Thank you. Mr. Rama?
Much like my fellow partners here, I have not traveled much really out of the United States, although I have been throughout the United States much. My general impression of Muslim people are just caring, loving, compassionate, and we have so much in common. I look for what we all have in common, and that's what I see. I see the greatness in all people, quite frankly, and we need to build up on each other's strengths and protect one another. That's what this country is all about.
Thank you. I also have been deprived of travel to Muslim country, but I have a strong impression and perspective of the Muslim population that I have occasion to deal with, and it's one of a peaceful community, people who want to work together, people who have strong attachments to their religion, strong value for education, and a strong desire to be part of the American culture and proud to be Americans. And so I think it's a misunderstood culture, a misunderstood religion in the popular media, because it's painted a picture for Americans who aren't familiar with it as being something very different than my experience has been.
Thank you. This question comes from me. If you are elected as a sheriff, do you have any plans to appoint any of the Muslim community to various committees or organizations that the sheriff has? I will start with Mr. Hammond.
Absolutely, that would be one of the first orders of business would be to expand upon what was built up as far as community outreach and more specifically to the Muslim community. Not only here, but in the Antelope Valley, we have a strong presence as well, and I've visited many leaders there, Dr. Farouk and Mr. Khatib, and so we I absolutely want to continue outreach, and I know many people here by name, but I don't want to start embarrassing people, but we absolutely, that's the strength of Los Angeles County, the diversities, the cultural skills, the language skills, and I want to make sure our Sheriff's Department is moving in that direction.
Very good. Mr. McDonald?
Thank you. Absolutely. I'd like to be able to get in there, get an assessment of where we are relative to the advisory groups we have already set up, to be able to build on those that need to be or that need to be nurtured and further, and to be able to look for the opportunity to around the county to bring people to the table in an advisory capacity to share the culture, to share the needs, the priorities of the communities that maybe we're addressing and maybe we're not, but to get that back and forth dialogue so we have feedback to be able to do the job better. I've been a friend of Shaquille Syed for a number of years. We've had an open dialogue and I think a healthy discussion on many occasions as to how do we do our job better, both when I was with LAPD and with Long Beach PD, and have gotten some very realistic, very concrete steps that we can do to be able to make things better, bridge the gap with the community, and to create a better understanding on both sides.
Thank you.
I would absolutely appoint folks to my advisory commission, but I wouldn't just appoint the people who tell me I'm doing a good job. I just don't want people who are just going to pat me on the back and look for folks that are happy. I want to hear from folks who are also a little unhappy or have some really strong recommendations in terms of what we can do better. And I also don't want to wait for people to come to me. As I said earlier, I want to come to you. I want to be part of your culture. I want to be part of your religion. I want to come to your mosques. I want to be part of what you have going on, being part of your advisory commissions and committees if I'm so invited. And I would like my deputies and other members of my organization to do the same thing.
Thank you. The next question came from the internet, and this question says, the spying on Muslims in New York and New Jersey issue, how do you see that? And would you, if you were elected, would you support something like this? And we'll start with Mr. McDonald.
Thank you, and that's a great question. It's something of relevance. Bill Bratton is the commissioner back there in New York now. It was in the paper that he's looking at that whole process to look at potentially revamping it. We should never be looking at people based on who they are. We look at behavior. We look at crime. We don't look at the individual because they belong to whatever group, ethnicity, or religion. We should be looking and focusing on people that because their behavior dictates that they're going to hurt other people. That's really what our job is, not to focus our efforts on trying to classify a group as a people, that in some way that everybody in that group is going to be a threat. That's absolutely not the case. So focus on behavior, focus on criminal activity, and spend our limited resources in a wise way.
Thank you.
The United States Constitution applies to all Americans, not just Christian Americans, not just Jewish Americans, also Muslim Americans, and everybody who is represented in this great country of ours. We have an obligation to do constitutional policing. We have an obligation to fight against racial profiling, whether it be in an organized fashion through surveillance, spying, or whether it be through traffic stops on the streets. It is not okay ever to stop somebody based upon who they look or how they worship their God. And I will be a champion for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Spying is something that is driven by cause, nothing else. It's driven by criminal behavior, and anything less than that cannot be tolerated by in law enforcement, because that's where you start to get the hysteria and where you start to profile folks based on the color of their skin or their ethnicity. I've never engaged in that. I've certainly never advocated that in my various roles in law enforcement. And as sheriff, the way to combat that is to engage folks from the community, have vibrant, healthy discussions, make sure that you bring the leaders on board so that you stay informed, and also to recruit young Muslims from the community so that they can follow in the footsteps of people like Sergeant Abdeen and Deputy Atani to ensure that we have representation of the voice of the community right here in law enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You know, this is an interesting question because what we all have in common is we all stand up for safety for our families. And we also all have in common is we're all against terrorism. but there's terrorism in two ways. There's destruction of property and life, but there's also destruction of our Constitution and our civil rights. I will not stand for that. Absolutely not. We cannot have that I consider to be terrorist activity too, when you're destroying and throwing away our United States Constitution under the auspices of you need to spy on our own people who live here in our great country. If there's specific information that comes on solid evidence, that's a different story. We're all for family safety, but we can't indiscriminately do it because people have Islamophobia or anything like that. And that won't be tolerated as long as I'm sheriff.
Thank you very much. I'm getting with the questions and from internet, from audience. I have a question for Mr. McDonald. Says, you were part of the Blue Ribbon Commission. Tell us the three most egregious violation you found and what three changes you will bring to the system as an outsider to LASD.
Thank you. I was a member of the Citizens Commission on Jail Violence. We spent a year studying the Sheriff's Department. We focused our energies where the complaints were the most prevalent, which was in the jail. What we came away with were allegations that were supported by deputies, by nurses, by doctors, by chaplains, and by inmates in the jail of corruption, of brutality, of within the organization of pay to play, of favoritism, and I could go on and on. What was done with that? Some steps have been taken. As I mentioned, we issued a report with 63 recommendations for change. Those are underway. However, what needs to be done is strict accountability, setting the bar high and having people work toward that with very clear expectations of what we expect for behavior and performance. That was not being done. In fact, the contrary was being done when people were somewhat rewarded for aberrant behavior.
Thank you. Mr. Roger, would you like to add something to that?
It was the product of leadership failure. We had the wrong message being sent to our deputies. It was okay to work in the gray area or push the envelope or push the bounds of reasonableness or constitutionality. The 63 recommendations are in the process of being implemented. I'm an assistant sheriff now. I was tasked with providing the resources and the wherewithal to make those recommendations a reality. And when I talk about professionalizing the jail operation, we're doing that. We have a dual track system. We have an inspectional services command that's being formed with funding from the Board of Supervisors to the cost of $13.4 million and 64 employees. We're setting the right message now. We're holding people accountable when they step over the line, and we're holding supervisors accountable when they fail to supervise. That failure of leadership that I talked about was systemic, and it's being stopped as we speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Muhammad?
You know, I read the recommendations, and I largely concur with the recommendations to improve the jail system. Of course, we can do that everywhere, adding cameras, and a lot of it had to do with economics. Cameras were recommended years ago, but the board didn't want to put it in because they thought they were going to tear that jail down. And they thought, why spend millions of dollars to put in cameras, and we're going to tear the building down? So along comes the commission, and they uncover a few things. You know, I'm not excusing anybody. The fact of the matter is, it's a very difficult and dangerous place to work. And people, the people that work there, their number one task is to keep people in the jail safe. That's their job. And I'm not just talking about the staff, I'm talking about the inmates. And so again, the best way to do it, hire the best, train them, and hold people accountable for doing their jobs, and you'll get that jail right back on track.
Thank you very much. Mr. Muhammad?
I have a little bit of a different take. For openness and transparency to take place, we truly have to be open to the criticism that was there. And my compliments to Chief McDonald. He was on that jail commission. They did an outstanding job of identifying some issues that needed to happen as far as reforms within our organization, specifically in the jail. And I was brought in after those allegations as a commander to go ahead and implement those reforms. So my compliments to him and the other commissioners that were there. They did a good job. I know my political consultant would say, oh, don't pay him a compliment, you're running against him. But the reality is, it is true, they did a very good job in outlining some of those issues. And I was brought in as a commander to actually implement those reforms. We have more to do, and we're on the path to recovery, and I give compliments to that jail commission and their findings.
Thank you. You can keep the microphone because the next question is yours. Islamophobia at all-time high currently. Muslims being attacked from everywhere. Mosque has been vandalized. People were violence were committed against them. We have public officials from the federal, state, and local level using Islamophobia in their election. We have stand with Sherrif before that he stood and spoke against that. Are you going to have the same stand that Sherrif took and stand with the Muslim community when they are attacked, especially with something big like ridiculization of Muslims in Washington?
Well, thank you very much. I actually feel like that's a great question for me to answer because the answer is already there. I've already been here. I've already been in other mosques throughout Los Angeles County. I've been in through the Antelope Valley. I know many of you that are here. So absolutely, I will continue and I will actually expand because I feel a kinship with all of your families, and I want you to feel the same with my family. We need to protect one another. We need to look out for each other, and that's an officer of peace. That's what the sheriff is of Los Angeles County. We truly need to take on that role as a peace officer, and I will do that as the sheriff of Los Angeles County.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. I think Sheriff Parker stood himself apart from a lot of people who didn't have the courage to stand up for what was right. He wasn't defending people who were doing criminal acts, who were doing acts of terrorism. He was standing up for all of the good people who were members of a religion, members of a culture that are peace-loving, that are doing the right thing, and got dragged down by the actions of a few. So when I stand up, I'll stand up for what's right for any group and be able to say proudly that the vast majority of people in any group are hardworking, looking to make life better for their kids than it was for themselves, and value all of the things that we as Americans hold dear.
Thank you, Mr. Robert.
It's one of the things I hate about politics. Some candidates will say anything to get elected. They'll pander to their certain constituencies so they get votes, and then they get elected and they do just the opposite. I have a 29-year career within the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. I have a 13-year career as elected official. Many people in the room know me. I have a track record. I'll promise you that I would not stand up for that. I promise you that I would be your advocate and champion, stand side by side with you. But you don't have to take my word for it. You can look at what I've done over 29 years with the Sheriff's Department. You can look at what I've done 13 years as a member of the local city council. You can talk to your friends that are sitting next to you in this room who know me. They know that I'm telling the truth. I'm not one of those candidates that just tells you what I think you want to hear. You can hold me accountable for what I'm telling you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
I mentioned this earlier. I certainly understand as a person, as an American of Japanese ancestry, people, entire race of people were locked up based on government-created hysteria and unfounded fears. People uprooted from their homes and their jobs and placed in horse stables and camps because of the color of their skin and their ancestry. You can bet, I've been doing this all my life, I will be at the forefront in fighting against any kind of racist attacks or behavior by anybody, be it criminals or people in government. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, I want to take another question from the audience, and Mr. McDonald. Yes. Can we be very brief and precise?
My question is about Muslim community mapping program started by Michael P. Downing, Deputy Sheriff of LA. So I would be interested in knowing each of you, what is your take?
Okay, the brother is asking a question about the mapping program that started by LAPD about a year and a half ago, and it was a scratched off code, I don't know if it is scratched off or still in the work secretly. What's your stand on that? You support something like that?
Yeah, absolutely not. We don't need to map people to know where certain groups live, where they work, where they worship. We need to look at behavior. Criminal behavior is our job. We need to know where the criminals are. It doesn't matter what faith, what ethnicity they are. That's our job, is to follow the people that are committing crimes, that are hurting and preying on other people. So mapping of any group is not appropriate.
Thank you.
That's profiling.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers.
The only discrimination we need to have are for those who are out there committing crimes and preying on others. It has nothing to do with religion. It has nothing to do with the way we look. My grandfather was born in Chihuahua, Mexico. My sister was born in Tijuana, Mexico. I have a very different perspective because of that. I've carried that with me throughout my career as a law enforcement officer. It's not about who you are, it's about what you do. My bias is toward criminals. My bias is toward people who kill other people, who steal, who break into your homes, who steal your cars. That's what we should be focused on. Crime mapping, not people or religion mapping. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tanaka.
I think you've heard my viewpoints on where I am with when people are treated irresponsibly based on racism. Simple answer to your question about mapping, no.
Mr. Hartman?
It sounds like we're all in agreement here. It's very clear. No, I don't see that as a sound and fair practice. So rather than bore you with others speaking, I'm just
Thank you. Okay, I'll take another question from the Mayor Pro Tem from Diamond Bar. I'm running for the Assembly, Mr. Tai.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to ask a question. I'm Mayor Pro Tem of Diamond Bar, Steve Tai. We are a contract city. We contract with the Sheriff's Department. It's the largest item in our budget. And I'm here to tell you, on behalf of the city of Diamond Bar, and more than likely on behalf of everybody in this room, how much I respect the job the sheriff does. How much I respect the Sheriff's Department, the guys on the street. In Diamond Bar, we consider them our police department. So thank you all for everything that you've done in making our community a safe place. My question directly for each of you is if you would please address AB 109 and how that affects the LA Sheriff's Department and how it affects our communities as well.
Okay, can you elaborate the 109 for the audience?
AB 109 is my editorial comment, the wrong-headed idea of sending criminals to the county and to the cities without the resources to do it.
You beat me to it. I had a question for that. Okay, well, we'll start with Mr. Rogers.
I think it's been a disaster. It's added 7,000 inmates to our 20,000 bed capacity jail system. That means we have 7,000 fewer beds for county jail inmates with people who are committing crimes in this county. It costs us $200 million a year to administer the program, our portion of AB 109. We only get about $174 million, so it's costing us a net loss of $26 million a year. The state is transferring inmates to county jails and ultimately New York communities that account for 75 to 80% of all the crimes that are committed in our communities. These are property criminals, people who are stealing our cars, breaking into our businesses, stealing our identities. And we have no recourse. Once we let them go, there is no parole, there is no probation. We can't follow up on these criminals to make sure they're not recidivating. We definitely need some legislative changes in the law to make it safer for all of Los Angeles County.
Thank you. Mr. Tanaka?
Realignment, for those of you, again, the state had too many people in their prisons. So the federal government stepped in and said, you have to move them out. They didn't want to be bad guys. They didn't want to be known as the people who released people from prison before their sentence was served. So they sent them to us, to the counties. We got almost 40% of all those state prisoners right here in LA County. Now, they might not be classified as being serious or violent offenders now, but for many of them, if you look in their past, they are. They're just looking at the last charge. Everybody's talking about, well, we need to, the state said you can better rehabilitate them. You can't rehabilitate them if you can't keep track of them. And there's no mechanism for that because there's no parole and there's no formal probation. Fact of the matter is, we have to put the resources necessary to chase down these absconders and put them back in jail.
Thank you.
AB 109 as a whole, it was not a fair process, meaning that they pushed state prisoners into our local communities. And quite frankly, the Sheriff's Department has dealt with it in Los Angeles better than any other agency. We came up with education-based incarceration, where we are teaching inmates education, rehabilitation, anger management, and work skills in the jail. We always say we have 100% attendance, right, because everybody's there. And we need to continue these types of programs. It's not fair. As a sheriff, I would advocate for more money, for proper funding. But in the meantime, we have to deal with it because it was forced to us. And so that's just the situation we're in. So rather than complain about it, we have to deal with it in a real way.
Thank you. Mr. McDonald?
Thank you very much. 3109 came to us in 2011. We had done everything we could to try and bring it to the public's attention that this was not going to be beneficial for us. It reduced the state prisons by 45,000 inmates. They had to go somewhere, and as you heard, about 40% of them come back to Los Angeles County. We were not prepared for that. In many counties, there's 58 counties in the state. None of them have the scope of the problem that we have. They don't have the ability. Probation was taxed already to being overwhelmed, and now to add on what parole did previously to them was not fair to anybody. So when I look at where are we with this, there was a Supreme Court decision that upheld the reduction of the number of prisoners for legal reasons. So we are stuck with dealing with what we have. We've taken the money we've gotten from the state and put compliance teams in place, and we've done a relatively good job in trying to track down where these individuals live. That has been a challenge in itself. Most of the addresses are not good. We continue to work on that, but we have to advocate for more money from the state.
Thank you very much. Mr. Rogers, you already answered the question. We're going to start with Mr. Tanaka. This question for you from the internet. Mr. Tanaka, what is the reason Sheriff Ibaka retired? Was it your doing? What did you do? What do you not agree with him on? Tough questions from the audience, huh?
I really don't think the boss is going to retire because of me. He gave his reasons in his public statement. He said there were many, that he was part of the past and not a part of the future, and that there were many other reasons that he considered personal, and he wished for them to remain that way. And I think we should respect those wishes. I really don't know. I have not talked to him about his retirement.
The things that you did not agree with.
The things that we didn't agree with, again, were really largely philosophical in nature, based on leadership and management. I thought that we should pick people who were knowledgeable and experienced and had proven over time that they had the courage to be the person they were supposed to be in the position they wanted. If you have a company and you have subordinate bosses who have people that work for them, they have to do the job they're paid to do and hold the people beneath them accountable for doing the job, and that's where we largely differ.
Thank you. Anybody else to elaborate on that, or should we take another question?
I think it's pretty clear that Sheriff Lee Baca had to resign because of what he did, because of all the reports that were in the LA Times and on the news constantly about bulletproof vests being smuggled to Cambodia, about hiding an inmate from the FBI, about preferential treatment in hiring and promotions, one scandal after another. Sheriff Lee Baca was betrayed by the people he trusted the most. One of his big failings was he was a trusty man. He wasn't a manager, he was a visionary. He left the management up to other people. He picked the wrong people until recently, and those people let him down, were beset by scandal. That's why we're having this conversation today. That's why we're having this contested election for sheriff. That's why we're talking about focusing on problems within the LA County Sheriff's Department instead of other agencies. He trusted the wrong people. Those people betrayed him. They were disloyal to him. That's why he had to resign, in my opinion.
Thank you. Can we have the brothers in the back, please, to keep it down, because we're receiving some complaints from the brothers. Anybody else who wish to address this? Okay, we'll take another question from the audience. I want to see a lady. We haven't taken that many questions from sisters. Sisters, where are you? Yes, okay. Can you get the microphone? We're trying to be fair and balanced here.
My question is different. It's about elementary schools or for the field trips. My daughter's asked me to go with them at the last minute, I guess. And I said, okay. So the last minute, I didn't know where we were going. And then what happened is
Can you
we
give
went
us?
to the Museum of Tolerance, and when we walked in, we had to be checked. And I was a Muslim. I was actually the only Muslim with a lot of Muslim kids. And then the first step was they showed the wheelchairs, and that really hurt me. And I have I think like about 30 kids that are Muslims. And all the children, maybe like 500 people were there, they were looking at them different. So I don't know if you can have something to do with the district not to take the children to the museum.
So your question that you were visiting the Museum of Tolerance, you had some children from the school, and you were checked because you were wearing the hijab?
Everybody was checked.
Everybody was checked, Muslims and non-Muslims?
Yes.
Okay, so what's your question?
But the question is when we walked in, we had to show the video about September 11, and they showed the Muslims 2 times. We were the terrorists.
Okay, so you felt uncomfortable with that?
At that point, I was standing with many children, with Muslim kids, with other, of course, other kids that day. And everybody was looking at us because I was wearing my hijab.
So your question, in your opinion, that showing the video was appropriate or was not appropriate?
It was not comfortable.
Was not comfortable if they're trying to...
Because other kids at that age, at that young age, looking at, everybody.
Okay. We got the question, sister. Thank you.
To build that feeling between the children at that young age, I don't think it was appropriate.
Okay.
Because those kids stayed together for many years.
Okay.
Okay.
So we got the question. So basically, the question to you all, and we're going to start with the last person we have. I think Mr. Trak. We're going to start with Mr. Huffman. The question is, in the Museum of Tolerance, they offer this September 11 movie showing the Muslims are the terrorists, which is a museum supposed to be educational museum to teach the people how to live with each other, how to accept each other. In your opinion, what will you do to prevent something from this happening again, or would you recommend to the museum that they adjust their message?
I don't know how to answer it in the sense that I wasn't there, so I'm not really 100% sure how to address your issue. But I can tell you from having kids myself and my wife being here, I have 3 boys, Jacob, Joshua, and Jonah, and we like to be involved in the messages they receive from school or anything. Oftentimes the schools will try to push their own message on my kids, whether it's about sexuality or things that we don't think are appropriate at an early age. And so the only way I know how to answer that is just constant awareness and voice your concerns to the school administrator that you attended with. But I'm not 100% sure because I was not there, so I don't want to give a disrespectful answer not knowing exactly what was there that day. But I would definitely encourage you to be involved in the messages that your kids receive, because at the end of the day, us as parents are the ones that should be delivering and mentoring our kids.
Mr. McDonald?
Yeah, if I would recommend that you bring it to the attention of the people who are running the Museum of Tolerance. That is what they're supposed to be representing. If you were not comfortable doing that and was brought to my attention, I would be happy to say that somebody was offended here. It was an issue of kids being exposed to something that you weren't comfortable with, and let's see what they do with it. I haven't seen the video, so I can't make a comment directly on what occurred.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rogers.
Certainly regrettable that you're made to feel that way, and I would also convey the message if there was some poor messaging being done by the docents or the other employees at the museum, but if they insist on playing that video, I think that's an opportunity to educate those who see it, that the people who committed the acts on 9/11 were criminals, were terrorists. But that's not reflective of a religion or a people, and that should be part of their messaging. And I would certainly try to participate in conveying that and even offer our services if they were desirous of having us be part of that conversation. But I think if it's handled the right way, it's a positive opportunity to educate. But that's not reflective of anybody else who may be here and are law-abiding, peace-loving Americans. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tanaka.
Well, your question certainly highlights once again the necessity for law enforcement to make sure that we are neither perceived on the left or the right, that we are always walking down the middle line, fighting to protect the civil rights of all people, all cultures, all religions. And the issue that you're talking about with the Museum of Tolerance is really something that A, should be considered by your school, whether you're going to take those children back there again, and B, whether the leaders of the Muslim community need to stand up and have a meeting with the leaders of the Museum of Tolerance and the Jewish community to decide whether or not this is something that they should continue showing, because it paints one particular race and culture in a very negative light, and they're supposed to be teaching people how to be tolerant. So that would be my suggestion, is that the school consider not going there until this is fixed, and that the leaders of the Muslim community arrange to have a meeting to try to address this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to take one more question from the audience, a brother in the back. Please, let's be very brief and precise.
Thanks a lot for coming to our mosque. I'm a physician. I've visited jail to check on patients. Somehow it appears that one race is more they are independent of the jail system. African American, Hispanic. Is there any way that we can see that how the trend change? I mean, by color, people are criminal. It is what is the reason that we have more people of color in the jail? Thank you.
Okay. So the question is why we have more minority in jail, people of color, like in general, specific race. And we know that there was an investigation done by the Department of Justice for the highest rate in certain color. I know that in our area, in Palmville, Lancaster area, they had an investigation for the African American and the Hispanic, and in certain area, Los Angeles County, they did the same. So what is your position on trying to basically reduce these numbers? And we'll start with Mr. Rogers.
In my opinion, the four pillars of public safety are suppression, prevention, intervention, and rehabilitation. We've had a focus for too long on locking as many people up as we can, putting them away, throwing away the key. There are people in our society that need to go to jail. They need to stay in jail for a long time. But we need to do a better job of prevention, intervention, and when they're in the jails, rehabilitation. We started a program at Carson Station where instead of going after our youth that were descending into a life of crime or gang involvement, we partnered with community-based organizations to divert them into programs that they needed that were specific to their needs, whether it be tutoring or anger management classes or whatever the case might be. We need to focus on those types of programs in the communities that are experiencing impacted by suppression efforts. We need to find ways of preventing crimes and not arresting people instead of just focusing on suppression, suppression, suppression.
Thank you. Mr. Tanaka.
It is a problem. We've got the problem in the Antelope Valley, as you mentioned. We have a problem going on in Long Beach, where recently an audit showed that blacks are being stopped at 4 times the rate of whites. The fact of the matter is, this is a problem for law enforcement, and it's a constant one about training. Again, making sure you hire the right people, train them to make sure they understand their job is always down the middle of the road. It's not based on color or creed or religion or anything else. So you have to make sure that the people you hire are the best, that they're fair-minded, that's part of what we look for, and that you as the leader, I as a sheriff, have to remain ever vigilant and mindful of what is going on and making sure that all the people that are working in command positions know how people in their command are treating people to make sure that we can address that issue. And how we address that issue is going to start from within, with education and training on the part of the law enforcement officers.
To answer your question directly, it's my opinion that certain communities have been deprived of resources that build up for future success, meaning proper education, mentoring, after-school training, job opportunities for sound job opportunities. And unfortunately, that leads to things such as involvement in crime, unfortunately. And then there's also been a heavier focused effort on crime suppression in certain areas. So what I've done, when I've commanded areas such as Compton and Linwood and unincorporated Watts areas, we make a heavy focus on youth outreach, education, total involvement, civic involvement with public safety and law enforcement and the Sheriff's Department. So I want to continue that countywide. I think it would be a blessing for the entire community to have total involvement and civic involvement in the Sheriff's Department. That's exactly how I would handle that.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald.
I think you've heard some of the issues. What we're talking about is as much a societal problem as it is a symptom that we deal with from a policing standpoint. And when you look nationally at some of the drug policies that have been implemented that have had unintended or adverse impacts on certain segments of the community, it's not as much a race issue as often a socioeconomic issue. It's the poor people who get the worst education, who get the worst care, who get the worst housing, and all of those issues that end up leading to dysfunctional neighborhoods where you have gangs running the neighborhoods. Gangs drive violent crime in urban areas. Police go to where the violence is. And this cycle perpetuates itself, so you get more of the same unless you can do an intervention to be able to go in and be able to use education, prevention, intervention, the enforcement piece selectively, and then the rehabilitation and the reintegration. It's a continuum that you have to have kind of the full program in order to be able to get the desired result. Otherwise, the cycle continues.
Thank you. The final question before the closing question. This is for Mr. Tanaka. And this came from the internet. Mr. Tanaka, you said you have a difference in philosophy than the Sheriff Baca. Mr. Rogers said that he believed Baca to trust the people he put in his executive team. Why then does your name consistently fall into scandal regarding the alias deal? If he trusted you, then you would have done tasks that are not scandalous. It is this fault or yours? Is his fault or yours? Is this like Baca's fault or is it your fault?
Well, I wouldn't say that it was a fault of either. I would just say again, Sheriff Baca had his style, and I agreed with it largely for many years. He would not have promoted me as many times as he did. From when I met him, I was a lieutenant. He promoted me 5 more times up to the rank of undersheriff. He was certainly my mentor and my boss for many years. It's just that later on, as years went by, I felt that he became disengaged from the organization. I don't think he was as interested in what we were paid to do for a living, and that was to fight crime and make communities safer. I thought he lost an interest in the day-to-day operation. And so where we differed was in finding the future leaders and bringing in people that, again, as I say, in any company, but especially in law enforcement, bringing in the right people who are going to provide the kind of leadership that's going to hold people accountable to make sure that we do things the right way. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hummel, do you want to comment on that? Do you want to put any comment regarding this? I mean, I'm giving you the equal opportunity.
Well, I really don't want to get in between an argument between Baca or
Okay. Mr. McDonald, do you want to say anything about it?
Sure, I look at it, what the jail commission found was that there was a failure of leadership at the top levels of the organization. Ultimately, the sheriff's responsible, but certainly he traveled a lot, and he relied, he would tell you today if he was here, he trusted the wrong people. And what he believed was being done was not. And we ended up with scandals that were national news. We ended up with, like somebody mentioned, over $100 million in the last 3 years in lawsuits and settlements. That $100 million could be spent a whole lot better on so many other things that are truly needy. So when you look at where does it fall, it falls in a number of different places. But those who didn't stand up to do something about it also bear some responsibility.
Thank you. So Rogers, you want to say something?
I don't normally defend the Los Angeles Times. They've been generally pretty abusive toward the Sheriff's Department. But I gotta say, with a lot of these scandals, their reporting has been pretty accurate. And a lot of us within the Sheriff's Department learned about some of the scandals, many of the scandals, by reading the Los Angeles Times and watching the news. And we're just as disgusted by these scandals as you are, and everybody else out there who's been watching it. We're very disappointed because we love our organization, we grew up in this department, and we want to represent the vast majority of the men and women of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department who do a great job every single day for all of us.
Thank you very much. I can't believe we are almost at the end of the forum. We have been here about an hour and 45 minutes, so we are almost winding down to the final question. Basically, my final question is, why should I vote for you, each one of you? And this is basically your closing statement to the people. Why should they vote for you? Give any information how to reach you. You have 2 minutes. To that, I'm going to start from the left all the way to the right and start with Mr. Rogers.
Thank you very much. I was brought in 12 months ago by Sheriff Baca to start reforming the organization from within. He trusted the wrong people, and when he was looking for help, he looked within the organization and outside and heard that I was somebody that he could trust. I'm somebody with a track record within the organization, and even in my political career, there was a model of integrity with the following of the executive team and the rank and file, somebody they trusted to move us forward. The men and women of the Sheriff's Department want new leadership. They want somebody who understands what it's like to work a radio car with the same radio cars that they work. They want somebody who understands the organization and has a passion for the department. In my first year as sheriff, I'm going to get back to the basics. We're going to focus on our core missions. So we are providing the best possible service to you, to our jails, to everything that we do. We're going to have strict internal accountability measures. We're going to focus on humane and constitutional jails. We're going to deal with the mental health crisis within the jails and also on the streets of Los Angeles County. We're going to engage in collaborative reform. I'm not going to welcome external oversight. I'm going to bring external oversight into the organization. I'm going to invite the U.S. Department of Justice and best practices experts from around this country to come in and work with me, work with us, to look at our systems and see how we can do it better so we can provide better service to Los Angeles County. We are going to be the largest agency in the country, in the world, to institutionalize community policing. We're going to make it real. When I say that we're going to go out and forge partnerships with you all, every member of the organization, not just a special few, every member of the organization is going to be accountable for engaging in partnership building with you all. I want them to hear from you. I want you to hear from them. We need to understand the mutual priorities, and we're going to focus on what's important to you. And finally, I'm going to be your voice in law enforcement, in county leadership. I'm going to be your partner, and I want to hear from you how I can be the best possible sheriff for all of Los Angeles County. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think when you compare the candidates, and that's really what you need to do, you've got a lot of people who want work very hard and want this position. I have 33 years of experience working in Southern California law enforcement, LA County law enforcement. I bring a fresh perspective, an outside set of eyes, and a new look at the department, and the ability to be able to start unencumbered by internal alliances. I don't know anybody inside. I've not taken any money from anybody inside the organization, either LASD or my current organization, because I don't even want the perception of pay to play or any kind of relationships or payoffs. My style is to be inclusive whenever possible, to bring all the players to the table and to be able to hear all perspectives before I act. I was the number 2 at LAPD. I'm the chief of police in Long Beach. I'm the only person on this panel or a candidate who's run a police department. We've had crime reduction, significant crime reduction in both the LAPD and the Long Beach PD during my tenure there. I've implemented command accountability systems in both organizations. My discipline, my style is firm but fair. I worked for a year and dedicated a year to focus my efforts along with the team that we had, a great team of the Citizens Commission on Jail Violence. So I have an insight into the problems within the jail and within the system. And as I mentioned earlier, 63 recommendations for change from which to build on. I have a track record over the last 33 years, and you can check it, of working with the community. Todd talked about institutionalizing community policing in LASD. That's exactly what I was doing in LAPD during the 90s. And then I have widespread support, and I'd ask you to look at my website for that. I have members of the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, the wide spectrum in the policing profession supporting me in my candidacy. I have the 45 chiefs of police in LA County. We need a team, we need a quarterback, we need to move together move forward together, and that's what I can bring to you. So I ask you for your confidence in my candidacy on June 3rd. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your consideration. We appreciate you hosting us here today. I'm a 25-year veteran of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. My father did more than 30 years serving the community throughout Los Angeles. The Sheriff's Department is different from LAPD or any other police department. We serve 42 contract cities. So endorsements in the city of Los Angeles are important, and I don't belittle them. In fact, I always try to be positive in everything I say. But it's different. The Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department serves 42 contract cities. The unincorporated area right here, we're in Roland Heights. We have the Metro Rail, court services, emergency preparation, parks, all the parks bureaus that are there. So we need a sheriff who understands the organization, who will be responsive to each of the 42 contract cities and unincorporated areas throughout Los Angeles County and is not beholden to the LA City infrastructure. I offer that. I've been committed to this organization. I have been involved in the reforms that were conducted in the jails, working with the Jail Commission, and they were very important reforms that we conducted. I want to continue that focus on serious and violent crime as opposed to overreaching for minor offenses. Since I've been in command of all of the patrol operations throughout Los Angeles County, we have the historic low in crime not seen in more than 40 years. That's how well we're doing as a community. So I want to continue that movement. And I also want to modernize our Sheriff's Department. I want to modernize your Sheriff's Department to have total involvement with our youth who have a better understanding than any of us in computer technology. How can we do that? We can use it to strengthen public safety when it comes to cybercrime, identity theft, and the new waves of crime. I want your Sheriff's Department to be modern and ready to go into the 21st century. That means total openness and inclusiveness of our youth and all cultures throughout Los Angeles County. That's what you'll see when I'm the sheriff. Thank you very much.
I want to thank the hosts again from the Islamic Center of San Gabriel Valley and to all of you from the community who are here to get informed and get yourself actively engaged in a very important race. I mentioned it earlier, 33 years in law enforcement, certified public accountant, mayor in the city of Gardena. I have a history, I have a proven track record of providing sensible solutions to reducing crime in the communities I've worked in. I have a history and a proven track record of being fiscally responsible with your tax dollars, not only in managing the sheriff's $2.8 billion budget, but also in leading the city from $5.2 million near bankruptcy to a $10.5 million surplus. You take a look at my track record, both on a operational front, a business front, and as an executive, 5 times elected to the city council, 3 times to a 4-year term as mayor in the community I grew up in. I believe that I have, again, the experience necessary to step right in from day one, begin the process of bringing the Sheriff's Department back to where it needs to be, with your trust and getting back to the business of making your community safer. Thank you again. I ask for your vote on June 3rd. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, you heard the candidates. It is your duty and responsibility to make the right decision. Vote for the person that you think has convinced you tonight. You can reach the candidates through their websites. You can just Google their name and get more information. If you have any questions, you can reach them. As I said earlier, the Islamic Center of San Gabriel Valley is a non-profit 501c organization, does not support or endorse any of the candidates. This forum tonight was provided as a community service to educate the community about the sheriff position, and the choice and vote is yours. And I want to give one more big round of applause for the candidate, Mr. Tanaka. We have a couple of speakers for 2 minutes. I want to invite, then we're going to take some pictures for future memory and publication to the Islamic community. At this time, I would like to invite a candidate for the State Assembly, District number 74, Sister Anila Ali, to address the people about their
Thank you, Islamic Center of San Gabriel Valley. Assalamu alaikum, good evening. I know that you've had 2 hours here, so I'm going to be brief. I would like you to go to my website, anilaali.com, and just read about me and the things that I have done so that you get to know who I am and that you can call the people in my district. I'm running for Assembly District 74. It's Irvine, Huntington Beach, Laguna Beach, Newport Beach, and Laguna Woods, which is a senior community. I have been endorsed. I'm the only endorsed candidate by the California Democratic Party. And how did I get there? For a Muslim woman who's a teacher in a public school in Lawndale, well, I couldn't have got there without the support of the community that's right here. I have my friends and supporters, my mentors, Nikki and Javed Gardar, Tina Nadnan Khan, Ashraf Chakwani, Arif Mansuri, all of these people have helped me get here. And some of the things that I have done, and I know that the LGBT and the Sheriff's Department is familiar with it. I wrote a book on tolerance. I am a teacher, and I realized that after 9/11, there was a need to make sure that our kids are not targeted and bullied. And that book is called Mommy Am I A, and that word missing is Mommy Am I a Terrorist. And that book has been adopted by my district. It's been used throughout the U.S. It is also in the White House, and it's been approved by the Center for it's a bullying forum at the White House, and so it is one of the books that's been adopted by a lot of the school districts, and it teaches tolerance. It teaches tolerance for our schools, our kids, and the other thing that I think is relevant to tell you is that I helped reduce the racial profiling that was happening at the border. And I did that because I just felt really angry. One day I was coming back from Pakistan, my mother had passed away, and I was stopped at the border, and I was harassed, and I was asked questions about where were you born? And so I got together with the Center for Human Rights and Global Justice, which is a part of the NYU, and in New York. And you can look at that, it's Americans on hold. But the reason I'm here is because my candidates are all Republicans, and the moment they realize that I'm a good, viable candidate,
You might have. The 55th Assembly District includes Roland Heights, Walnut, Diamond Bar in Los Angeles County, Chino Hills in San Bernardino County, Yorba Linda, Brea, La Habra, and Placentia in Orange County. So it's a 3-county area. I thought it was a big task to walk all the Diamond Bar. It's a real big task to walk. So I encourage you to visit my website, stevetai.com. I would love to have your help. You can help me walk precincts. You can help me with funds, as I was sharing with Al and with Jay. All I need is 200 people to donate $1,000, and then I'll be in good shape. Or I'll take 2,000 people that would donate $100. So any way that we want to do it. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, I hope I did a good job for you. I'm trying to bring you this question with a fair and balanced way. And at this time, I'd like to invite Brother Mahab Subah for the closing supplication statement. Thank you very much.
Assalamu alaikum. On behalf of the Shura and the trustees of Islamic Center of San Gabriel Valley, I would like to thank all the candidates. Hope you guys achieve your goals. And on our behalf here, I think all of you did a good job. And we expect from you, when you take the position, you do a good job. As Muslims, teaching, and would anybody take a position or a job, is perfect, that job. And with all your experiences, I expect you guys do the best and wish you the best. I would like to thank all the attendees, the moderator, Mr. Khatib, and hope to see you soon, election day, hopefully. And good luck. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Almighty, that forgive all our shortcomings, all our sins, and give us the right path to follow, and give you the guidance, and give you the justice that implemented in each human being, to be fair and just to all citizens. One of the things I just want to remind you, in Harvard University, in the law of school, there is a verse of Quran where the school adopted that to be justice to all mankind. So maybe you want to revisit that, and that will be a good guidance for all of us and for you too. Thank you, and hope to see you again on other forums and other means. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
هو كمان بكاميرتك Thank you. انا اسفه والله الفتره اللي ندمني على موضوع ما جاتش معاكم ليه؟
She's been waiting for you.
Do you know this guy?
Yeah.
He's my CPA, huh?
Wait, I met with him in a wedding in Long Beach. Very good. Well, brother, very nice causing Sherrif. Good job.